Welcome back to the Anglotopia podcast. This episode has been a long time coming. Can you believe it's been 5 months since the trip that we're going to talk about today?
6.
6? That's
Yeah.
the end of October. It's the beginning of March.
Alright.
Okay. So, when we went on our trip in October, we recorded part 1 of this podcast, and we talked about the first part of our trip before we went to the Cotswolds. And we said that when we got back, we would record part 2. Well,
Ha ha ha.
a lot has happened in 5 months, and it's been very busy 5 months. So
Yes.
Finally, I said, "Hey, Jack, do you want to sit down and record a podcast?" And she said yes. So she's chained to the library floor.
Send help.
And we are
No, I'm kidding.
now we're recording part 2 of this podcast. So we're going to talk about the second part of our trip and
Cotswolds portion.
where we spent 5 days in the Cotswolds and for research and to do various bits and bobs. Now, there's a few housekeeping things that we need to do at the beginning because that's the way it always is. The first is, please don't forget to join the Friends of Anglotopia Club. We are achingly close to our 200-member goal to be able to remove the Google ads from Anglotopia.net. So we are almost there. So if you could please join, it costs 2 cups of tea a month, or most people sign up for the year, and you get special articles every Sunday in your inbox called the Sunday Post that's not published anywhere else. And crucially, as a podcast listener, you get early access to the podcast, which is when we have a new episode, it's released 2 days early on Wednesdays. And we have all kinds of new features coming to the club in the next few months because the club has been a big success for us, and it's now a big priority. So please join the Friends of the Anglotopia Club. It is in the show notes.
Well, it has always been a big priority.
Yes.
It is something that is growing, and we want to make sure that we're providing value for our members.
Exactly. So, housekeeping bit number 2. The first part of our trip was to go to the International Churchill Conference. I have now published an article about every session of the conference, and I will put a link in the show notes to the page on the site where you can access them all. If you hear a dog barking, that is our very naughty King Charles Cavalier Spaniel. We don't know why he's barking, but
That's Cooper.
That's the joy of working at home in our library. And so, if you're lucky, the dogs will come and want to be on our laps, and you can see them. A housekeeping note number 3, and I talked about this last week's podcast, we have a new book out. The British Monarchy, A Complete Guide to Britain's Kings and Queens. It is an Anglophile's guidebook to British royal history. It's been a long time in the works. It is a compilation of... There's a survey chapter on every monarch since William the Conqueror. That's about 2/3 of the book. And then the last third of the book is 17 appendices. This is my Tolkien phase, where I'm putting a lot of appendices at the end of things. About British royal history, like etiquette and the interregnum and who's in the line of succession, which, hilariously, I had to rip open the book and update the line of succession at the last minute because I believe it was Eugenie had a baby in February, so it changed the line of succession. So it is as up to date as it can get. It is for sale in the Anglotopia store. It's available from booksellers everywhere. If it's available on Amazon, if you don't want to buy on Amazon, as a lot of people don't want to right now, you can buy on bookshop.org, you can buy from Thrift Books, you can buy from Blackwell's in the UK, which I'm pretty proud of.
Soon enough.
Yeah, you can buy it directly from us, and you can also buy the digital rights management free ebook that you can read on any device you want. So that is the new book. Links will be in the show notes.
Well, the cool thing with the book, though, is that you did a ton of royalty merch to go with it. So you can, you could wear your shirts and mugs and that kind of thing, and you could wear your favorite monarch.
I completely forgot about all that. Yes.
That's why I'm here.
See, I'm quite proud of my design for the cover.
As you were showing our sale.
Yeah, this is the only copy I had available right.
We sold out.
We sold out of all of our copies our first print run. So this is the pre-sale version where we checked everything. I'm quite proud of the cover because it has a nice picture of every monarch from 1066 their likenesses. You know, the history is a gray smoke.
Okay.
I'm quite proud of the design. You can get it on a mug, you can get it on a T-shirt, you can get it on a laptop bag or phone case.
So you could champion your favorite monarch if you want.
Yeah, and then in the coming months, we're gonna release merch of individual monarchs too, so you can so for all you Ricardians out there, you can get your Richard III T-shirt soon enough.
All right,
back to the trip.
Yes, what people tuned in to.
Yes.
Here.
So our tea. What are we drinking today? We are drinking Twining's English breakfast tea.
Okay.
So I've already had a cup of tea this morning.
I know, I was just thinking the same thing. I was like, oh, I should have told him decaf.
And people are going to judge us for keeping our tea bags in the cups, but sorry, time is short right now.
Oh, don't slurp.
Sorry.
Oh.
Sorry, it's really hot.
I know, but sorry for everybody who's listening who just heard.
So,
Yikes.
When we left you in part 1, which we will link to in the show notes if you haven't already listened to it, we were leaving London with our rental car.
Yep.
And so our plan...
Is that the one we recorded in the Cotswolds, or did...
Yeah, we recorded it at the castle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. I wasn't sure if we re-recorded that or not.
And so we were leaving London, and it took us forever to leave London. Traffic was not great. That was an issue we dealt with.
Well, we won't go into all that.
Yeah, we're going into that.
Like, go back to that podcast if you want to learn about that.
Our goal it was Sunday. So it being a couple years since we've been to England, my goal for the day is I wanted a nice Sunday roast in a country pub and to go to a National Trust stately home.
Well, I think that our first part of the trip was very London, was very
go
metropolitan, like lots of different meetings and cocktail dues and that kind of thing around the conference, and it was just very busy. And so I think we intentionally set, like, we are gonna essentially live the fantasy of we're gonna go have a long weekend out in the countryside, and we're gonna really kind of revel in and relish in all the joys of the English countryside. So pace changed up a little bit.
Yeah, we slowed down a bit.
Yeah, which was really nice.
And I love the countryside, so that's where my soul lives. And so when we were planning the trip, the first order of business was to figure out where we were going to have Sunday roast. And so she can tell you, I did hours of research last summer.
He takes his Sunday roast very seriously, and then a good Englishman would.
Where to have a nice Sunday roast. And so we decided, and this is an important thing, if you're going to plan to have Sunday roast at a country pub, a good country pub, you have to plan in advance and you have to book a table because all the country pubs fill up for Sunday roast.
Okay, we've actually had an experience once, which I won't name or shame, but things that you learn along the lines. If you walk into a Sunday roast or carvery or at a pub and you're the only one in there or one of a very few tables and only people are drinking and not eating, that's not a good sign. Yeah, it does not bode well for you. So book in advance. Sunday roast.
So we decided on the Highwaymen Pub, which is just outside of Reading, and it came highly recommended from all the research I did, and honestly, it delivered.
It was a treasure.
It was fantastic. It was bustling because it was Sunday. There were families having Sunday roast, and everybody was very friendly. And there was a burning fire in the fireplace, which was great. It was autumn.
Or late October, right? The colors in the countryside were absolutely spectacular. And we come from a part of the country in the U.S. where we get really vivid colors. But the colors in autumn this year in the countryside were just, the whole thing was like, I don't know, like kind of like a Richard Curtis movie, right? Like, we're jetting off from London down to the countryside, and it's like just completely idyllic. And the pub has this beautiful rural setting, like
tiny village.
You would set a movie there. You could set a movie in this setting. Yeah,
when we park the car, you get out of the car, and you can smell the wood burning from the fireplaces, and
you can hear sheep.
Sheep bleating, and there's a Land Rovers lined up along the side of the road.
Bloody Land Rovers. So you know. Like, okay, check. We're in the right spot. Yeah. I think it's Flagstone store. Gorgeous. Just perfect.
It completely delivered on the look and feel that we were looking for, so it gets top marks for that. The food was fantastic.
Phenomenal.
The Sunday roast was everything we wanted it to be, and then the sticky toffee pudding for dessert.
This was the
First
trip
time I had that.
that, I know that people make fun of British food, but in our 20 years of traveling to Britain, British food has come a really long way, and now it's something that we look forward to. So there are these iconic things that we go and have, and I'm definitely, I'm not really one for dessert, but, when in England instead of when in Rome.
Yeah.
So yeah, you had sticky toffee pudding for the first time, and it was very good sticky toffee. I think I was like, we'll just share it because you weren't sure. And I think you ate more of it than I did, which is fine. But I'm like, wait, hey.
So that was great. And then when I was doing the research, you always have to follow a Sunday roast up with a walk at a National Trust property.
Yeah, that's kind of our thing.
So
the Sunday roast is a heavy meal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a stick to your ribs kind of.
So the nearest one was Basildon Park. And if you are a fan of British TV drama or British film, you have seen this house a million times.
It's Mr. Binley's house in
the 2005 Pride
and
and Prejudice.
Or the one that he rents. So what is it? Netherfield.
And then they used it in Downton Abbey. They used it in The Gentleman. They used it.
Well, they had a whole exhibit on when we went on
all the stuff that's been filmed there.
Tons.
We'll link in the show notes. I have a gallery of pictures from everything I took there, and it shows the exhibition, so you can see. It was
very cool.
It was very cool. And Basildon Park, we parked, and the way National Trust properties are, the car park is usually far away from the house. There's a visitor center, and then you walk to the house. So that's the perfect thing to do after you've eaten a big heavy meal. And it was like 4:00 in the afternoon.
In October, so that's one of the things that, pro travel tip. By October, your hours of daylight are really short. And where that is challenging is that you have to, things don't open till 10 or 11 o'clock. By 4 o'clock, it's getting dark. So you really have to know your itinerary. And we were one of the last kind of not group, because they didn't take us through by groups, but we literally just made the cut before they shut the ticket office for the day. And it was crisp. I remember it's a little chilly out here.
But it was a nice fall day. The leaves were
it was stunning.
Golden and beautiful. The sun was golden, and you'll see in the pictures
rich gold color.
The Basildon on Basildon Park in the golden sunlight. It was perfection.
Yeah, it definitely.
And so we toured the house. The house is gorgeous.
Stunning. It was decorated for Diwali.
Yeah, it was
beautiful. Beautiful.
There's some dark history with Basildon Park.
Yes.
We're not going to go into all the history now. So I've actually already written a long read article about our day at the pub and at Basildon Park. It has all the history and bits and stuff. I will link to it in the show notes, but you have to be an Anglotopia member to read it. So you have to be joined the Friends of Anglotopia Club to read it, and it has all the details of everything you want to know about Basildon Park and the pub we went to for lunch.
The house is fascinating, and it was such a treasure to go through it.
And it's so crazy to walk through it, and you're like, this was in this, and this was in this, and this.
I mean, it's pretty iconic and well-used house for filming.
Because it's kind of a blank canvas. They can easily use it for shooting and move things around and everything. So that was Basildon Park.
But before we left, what do you do before you leave a National Trust property?
You cannot forget tea and scones and cream tea.
Yep. So not a full cream tea because we were still super full from lunch, but sat outside in the walled garden and had a nice cup of tea because by that point, we walked around, we're recovering from a big lunch. I was like, man, I need a cup of tea. And sat outside, and like I said, it was brisk, but it's so lovely. It was a walled garden, so it was bad.
And then it was a long walk back. Not a long, I said, not in a negative way. It was just a walk back to the car through the woods and the grounds. And
we kind of made a circle.
There was a path that you could follow because they give you a little map. It's great. It was a perfect way to spend a Sunday in England.
Out in the Cotswold countryside. 100% yes. Would do again.
So when we were done there, we hit the road again, and we had to drive to Thornberry Castle, which was our hotel we were staying at for the next 3 nights. And it was a 2-hour drive. So we arrived well after dark.
Stunning though when you pull up.
It's all lit up.
They had it decorated for fall very peacefully, and it was lovely.
So, and we checked into the room, which if you watched the last episode, you've seen the room. So
I think we should disclose that we were their guests for the stay.
Well, we paid, but they upgraded us because we were going to do the interview and all that stuff. So,
but it's important to note.
Full disclosures. They were involved in us coming there, and they accommodated us, and they get paid for one of our dinners as well.
And honest to God, even if they had not, it was a phenomenal stay and a great base in the Cotswolds.
So, by then it was pretty late.
We had just got in.
And so that
night we actually recorded the first half of the podcast.
Yeah, that was when we recorded the first bit of the podcast. You can
see we're a little weary from our leisurely day.
And so we did have dinner. So they have several dining options at Thornberry Castle. They've got a nice sit-down gourmet restaurant. Fine dining with a fixed menu. And then they also have more informal dining in the Great Hall / lounge.
Library.
And then in the library where you can order from a carte menu and whatnot. So that night we ate the a la carte menu in the library.
Which was beautiful.
Which was great.
Big roaring fireplaces going.
Yeah.
High ceilings, just really, I mean, and I think it was the perfect dinner for us too, because we had ate so heavy.
Yeah, it was
and
a
then
light
we
dinner.
were naughty and had cream tea, not like just scones and cream and tea, but that was still a lot. So by the time it was dinner time, it was like, oh.
And so we went to bed.
Yep.
And then the next morning, so the plan for the second day in the Cotswolds was we were going to do a tour of the castle with the castle's historian, who's a
treasure,
a wonderful local man who has done all the research and knows everything about the castle. And we did 2 episodes of the podcast about this. We did one where we interviewed him about the historical background virtually, and then we have the episode where he actually took us around the castle. Highly recommend watching that.
He's a walking encyclopedia.
Yeah, he's a walking encyclopedia, and it was such a treat to be shown around Thornberry Castle with somebody who knew pretty much everything about it. And the man is in his east, and he made us tired walking around the castle trying to keep up with them. He was
upstairs and down.
The stairs and down the stairs and in the gardens.
He was incredible.
Yeah, he was great. So hi Tony, if you're watching this.
Thank you again.
And so that was the plan for the day. Was really because we didn't know how long it would take. So we had breakfast in the fancy restaurant where they do breakfast.
Yeah, it's like an
octagonal room.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then we did the interview and the tour with Tony, which took several hours. And then we were done by lunchtime. And we're like, well, what do we want to do now? And this is like
hilarious.
This is one of those fun things that like you only do if you watch too much British TV.
Right here, this guy.
And so and I even shared a picture of this on our social media when we did this, and everybody knew what we were doing because we went to the most famous motorway services in Britain.
So for Americans who are not familiar, you're like, you did what?
Yeah.
At least in the Midwest, motorway services or rest stops are
not great.
Typically not great. They're not the cleanest.
Unless they're the oases.
You would not go for...
Yeah. You wouldn't go out of your way to go to any truck stop or rest stop along an American interstate unless it was a Buc-ee.
In most cases.
Yeah.
Oh, I've never been to a Buc-ee's.
The nearest one's 379 miles according to the billboard.
It's some pro marketing there.
So we went to Gloucester Services.
Yeah.
And actually, you requested to do this.
I did.
You're like, are we going to be near Gloucester Services? Because we were near Gloucester. And I'm like, we are.
I watched the show with you. And I remember, like, the show being on and being like, are you seriously watching a show about motorway services? And you were like, well, they have gourmet food. And there was, in the show, there was a lady there, a local artist, who made these most beautiful silk scarves. And I was like, I want one of these scarves, but I want to go get it from there. And so I was like, hey, are we going to be near the services? But unfortunately, they didn't have any of the scarves.
So for those wondering what she's talking about, there's a British Fly on the Wall documentary series set in the Gloucester Services. And we'll put a link in the show notes. And it sounds mind-numbingly boring.
It was actually pretty interesting. I was shocked.
But these are my favorite kind of British TV shows. And they're great to watch when you're laying in bed trying to fall asleep because they're very relaxing. They're very low stakes. And you believe it, I watched a 6-part series on the Gloucester Services.
And so then by extension, so did I.
And so did she.
But like they
you know,
talked about like the gourmet food.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. Pro tip, if you are wanting to make like a car picnic or a picnic, or you're wanting to take lunch maybe to a national trust or something like that, and you pass these services, you could make the best picnic out of their
Yeah.
gourmet gift shop. I was just, part of me was sad that we weren't in self-catering, because could you imagine what the grocery bill would have been? Oh
Yeah,
my
I'm so
God.
glad that we weren't self-catering.
No, we had a wonderful we had a wonderful time where we stayed, but the gift shop was just absolutely phenomenal. It's not gift shop. It's almost like a
It's a
grocery
grocery store,
store.
and then they had a gift shop that
Um,
has all the so the philosophy of the family that runs it is everything in the motorway services that's for sale has to be sourced from the local community. And
yes.
so within like I believe it's within 40 or 50 miles of the services. And so all the food is sourced locally and all the goods are sourced locally
I
by
could have
local
done
artisans. And
so
yeah,
much
they didn't have
damage.
the scarves,
They didn't
unfortunately.
have the scarves.
Because the show was probably filmed 2 years ago.
Yeah, but
But
they had plenty of really lovely things. So if you're looking for a unique, that's another pro tip. If you're looking for a unique souvenir,
yeah.
that would be a great spot to source one.
Well, and then the services themselves are actually beautiful, which is a weird thing to say architecturally because they've built it into the landscape so that it blends in with the Cotswolds landscape.
It has a sod roof. It's
Yeah, it doesn't
beautiful.
look like a truck stop. And then when you sit inside, or when you go inside, it's almost like a big airplane hangar.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It's one big expansive space, and then there's a food court where you can get all the food is made there on
Beautiful
like
food too,
yeah.
and I'm really picky about food. I'm not a huge fast food eater.
And then
Oh,
the seating area is along. There's like a little pond and a path along the seating area and everything.
like these are
Yeah.
the most extra waste services, but just I'm glad we stopped, and it was like dreary and rainy, and it was, I mean, true fall weather, but I can't.
And they were doing a brisk business.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, they
And
were.
and
But it's easy to see why.
so we had lunch there because we're like,
Mhm.
can we go to lunch at Gloucester Services? And I had a meat pie. You had
I think I had macaroni and cheese or something.
yeah
Or
some pasta.
salad.
Yeah, and the food was great.
It
I mean,
was
and you know
delicious.
it didn't. It was one of the most affordable meals we had the entire trip. I think it was like 25 pounds.
But I think that something that we were talking about as we were eating there, like, can you imagine? So for us, like, we kind of, yes, we were on the road, but we weren't like driving across the country. How lovely it would be to stop and know that you're getting a really nice meal. You stop, sit down,
Yeah.
have a meal, stretch your legs, and then you get back into your car and you're like completely refreshed. Like,
Now, and I don't like to be a little negative, but I was not impressed with the bathrooms.
oh, I didn't visit the restaurant.
They weren't as clean and shiny as I thought they would be from the
Well, it's
TV
not a
show.
Buc-ee's. No, again, I've never been.
So, but anyway, if you're driving along the spine of the Cotswolds, and is it the M5 or the M4?
You are.
Sorry, I should know the name of the highway. If you're driving along that motorway and you need gas, or you need to use the bathroom, or you need to get a snack, go to the Gloucester
Or
Services.
you
It's
need
a
an
lot of
awesome
fun.
souvenir, or you want to stretch your legs. For me to say it's worth a stop at the motorway services, that is a massive statement.
So yeah, and again, I have an article about this for the Friends of Anglotopia, which I'll link in the show notes. And then we'll link to the show as well. So it was a lot of fun. It was worth going out of the way to do. And since we were in Gloucester, we decided to go visit Gloucester Cathedral.
Mhm.
And that was going to be our big thing for the day.
Because we were rapidly running out of daylight.
And running out of energy as well, because
I think they did the time change on that trip, on that Sunday too.
maybe.
I think they did, because we were just.
Well, we got to do the time change twice because the British do the time change differently.
Yep.
They do it later and earlier.
I know we came home and he's like, "What time is it?" And I'm like, "I don't know."
Yeah.
Daytime.
So yeah, we decided to go to Gloucester Cathedral. Now, we should preface this by saying that we did not follow our own advice because when we were going was fixed because of the Churchill conference. Well, after the Churchill conference, it was half term. For those who don't know what half term is, that is the break in the middle of the British school term when the kids get the week off of school. And when When they have the week off of school, the tourist attractions, especially the free ones, are flooded with families. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just they're very crowded, and we don't like crowds. Neither of us do really.
It can be difficult to take in.
It's difficult to appreciate the heritage when it's really busy.
Well, and you miss a lot of, somewhere like Gloucester Cathedral with architectural significance and really intricate and detailed beauty. It can be very difficult to see some of it because the building or the site is very full.
And the cathedral was full of families enjoying the day, and there was a special exhibition on. So this is the weirdest thing. We walk into the cathedral from the entrance.
Incredible.
And it was incredible. I mean, it's incredible Gothic cathedral.
Hold that thought, though, because something that's important is that we mapped our way to the cathedral. We could see the cathedral. You could see the spire coming into Gloucester. Yeah. You cannot pull up
anywhere near it. Yeah,
it's a park and walk thing. Yeah. So it's a beautiful walk from the car park that we found. I think it was a public car park. It was great. We kept circling it. It's here. How do you get to it?
Medieval cities.
Pro tip, if you are mapping, if you're in a rental car,
map to a car park, don't map to the cathedral. But yeah, so we walked in, and as we walked in, there was a giant, and I mean giant, like as big as our house.
Yes.
Floating model of the planet Mars.
Yeah.
And it's spinning. And I forget the context. It was the god of war, and it was a part of an art installation that toured around Britain, where actually all the planets were at the various cathedrals.
Stunning.
And it was incredible. I mean, this thing was huge, but also it had turned a normally because normally in a cathedral there's chairs and it's a quiet, like solemn place, had turned it into like a fun art installation where everybody could walk around it and explore and
they had like
experience
beach like deck chairs out. You sit under it.
Yeah, you could sit under it, and there was music playing. It was really, really neat.
It was, and at the same time, it kind of threw the vibe of a cathedral off.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like there were kids running around screaming, and it was just, it was a little nuts in there that day, but people are in the space, they're enjoying the space.
Yeah, that's my stance. There's people, the cathedral's free, but they suggest you make a donation. So there's people there spending money, keeping the cathedral, going, which is great. Once you got away from Mars, and you could explore the various nooks and crannies of the cathedral, because it's massive. I mean, it's massive. It's
worth the trip. It is so unbelievably beautiful.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I will point out, there's two things I want to point out, and I'll link in the show notes to the articles I've already written for the Friends of Anglotopia about this. One is the ceiling. Most cathedral ceilings are amazing, but this one was particularly incredible with the intricate woodwork. So, and they even have a special place where there's a giant mirror set out, and then so you can look at the mirror and see the entire ceiling.
Yeah.
It was super cool. So, highly recommend that. And then there's a strange American connection at Gloucester Cathedral that was completely unexpected. So, we were walking around, and then there was an American flag in the cathedral. And there are some American flags in British cathedrals. It's not that unusual, but I was like, well, why is it there? Well, it turns out, and the man's name escapes me, I should have put it in the notes, but the guy who wrote the tune that our national anthem is set to was from Gloucester and lived in Gloucester and is buried there. And so when the Rotary Club in New York found this out, they constructed a special memorial at Gloucester Cathedral where they put the flags as a symbol of transatlantic and, unity, that, the irony of our national anthem being set to a British drinking song.
It's the most American thing ever.
So, there's an article about it on the website. I'll link to it. It's super fascinating. And I'm not doing the story justice because I forgot to put it in the notes here. But, we explored the cathedral.
Which was...
It was stunning.
Definitely worth stopping.
As I said when we were there, this is not a bad way to spend a Monday afternoon, walking around a beautiful cathedral.
It was beautiful.
Provincial English city. I'd like to do that every Monday. Thank you very much. Limits, Jonathan, limits. So, we did Gloucester Cathedral. After that, we were done for the day.
And it doesn't sound like a lot, but we were
lot,
just completely like, oh, thank God the hotel has somewhere for us to eat. I'm so tired.
So we did the fancy dinner the last night, correct?
Yes, we did.
So this night we went back to the castle. and we booked in for dinner in the library again.
Just a lighter dinner.
To have a lighter dinner.
Which was fine.
And it was fine.
And I went back and took a swim in the tub.
Yeah, the tub was great.
Did we talk about the room at all?
We did while we were in it, I believe. It was a giant room for a British hotel.
It's sweet.
Yeah, it was a suite, and the bath was gigantic.
Big old slipper tub, not old, but newly renovated room. Really, really beautiful, beautiful. I would say one of the most beautiful rooms we've been privileged to stay in England. And the tub in this room was just like, it was phenomenal. Like clawfoot slipper tub. Could just take a bath or take a swim in this thing for me. Yep. It was phenomenal. And they gave us sloe gin, a complimentary bottle of sloe gin. And I had never had it before. And I thought, oh, okay, this is interesting. And with the little sloe gin glasses, because that part of the Cotswolds is famous for it. And that was like, it was amazing. You know, just a little itty bit, just a sip but that in a bath, phenomenal.
So then that was the end of the second day, or the first day, really.
First full day.
First full day. So then for the next day, we actually didn't have anything booked. So like I kind of did a last-minute itinerary on my phone, and we basically followed that for the day.
Well, we knew that we needed
There were some things I wanted to see, so I was just like, okay, let's just do this, this, and this.
We also were trying to be intentional about just not packing that part of the trip so crazy.
Yeah. Well, and we wanted to make sure we saw some interesting things that we could share with you guys when we write articles and share pictures and all that. So the day was kind of constructed to I hate to say it, but to generate the most lovely content for everybody.
And again, we just really found ourselves racing daylight. That was just really challenging.
So the first thing we did is we drove over to Berkeley Castle, which was nearby. Now, this is a very old castle. I've got an article in Anglotopia we published yesterday that I'll link in the show notes that has all the history. Super fascinating place. Again, it was half term. And when we arrived, it's the funniest thing. When we arrived and bought our tickets, they apologized to us. It's just the most British thing. She apologized to us. She's like, "I'm sorry, it's still decorated for Halloween."
No, Halloween.
They're like, "It's decorated for Halloween," and we're like, "Okay."
She was like, "It's a bit much."
She's like, "It's a bit much." I'm like,
so to tell Americans it's a bit much, I was like, this will be interesting cultural. Like, what is a bit much?
So then we went through and walked the path to the castle, because again, there's always a visitor center, and you walk to the castle, go to the castle entrance. Place is already outside. It's already heaving.
I mean, they had people in the car park like looking for empty spots. I mean, it was really busy.
And so we walked to the castle entrance and we showed our tickets, and the lady goes, "I'm terribly sorry, but it's decorated for Halloween." We're like, this is the second apology we've gotten about it being decorated for Halloween, and we're like, okay, this is gonna be good.
Yeah, like what is going on here?
We go into the castle, we go and start going into some of the rooms, and they were right. The castle was decorated for Halloween American style.
Over the top
American style.
And the British children that were just eating it up and loving it, which was great.
Yeah, everyone was having a blast, but we were just like, so I visit these places for the heritage and the history, and so like took all that away because it's decorated for Halloween. Which all my pictures have all these Halloween decorations in them,
cobwebs and like
witches, skeletons, and spiders, and I'm like, the pictures are not going to be great from this.
Well, or they're just exceptionally unique and nobody else has pictures like this.
But, I mean, it's great. The castle was heaving, so, the castle's making money for the day, to preserve everything they preserve. Because there is 1,000 years of history in this castle. A few things. It's been the same family since it was built, which is an achievement in its own.
Yes.
And there was a king was murdered there. Edward supposedly murdered there. Edward II was kept prisoner there, and he died there under mysterious circumstances. He was murdered. And he was actually, we forgot to mention, he's buried in Gloucester Cathedral. He's the only king buried there. So he was murdered at Berkeley Castle when he was held prisoner after the anarchy. Again, I've got an article that explains all the history. I'm doing a disservice to it. But yeah, so we walked through the castle. Everyone was having a blast. The rooms are decorated. There were still cool things to see.
have kids, you're
Yeah.
traveling with kids, and you can arrange to do the castle around Halloween. It's totally worth it.
Yeah.
If you
Don't-
are
Don't want that, don't go at Halloween time.
yeah, I would not recommend
And
it.
somebody mentioned in the comments of my article I wrote about this, because I go into more in depth in the article, that a lot of the stately homes and castles also do something similar at Christmas. They go over the top.
We've seen that.
We've seen that.
And that, like, what is it?
Christmas is different. I like Christmas.
not-
It's
Not Longleat. Stourhead.
Longley and
Stourhead does the pantomime.
no, that was Longley.
Longleat, the pantomime where you walk through.
And they did the lights and all
yeah,
that.
it was super cool. But
so if you have heritage and like, because we did Longley
history.
If you have heritage and history in mind, avoid when there's a big holiday that can be decorated for, because they're going to decorate for it to bring in people.
And I get that they probably went over the top, for the kids at half term and that kind of thing. But it really, for me, kind of pulled something away from the experience. And because it was half term, like, it was exceptionally busy to the point where, like, there were some spots in the castle that I couldn't even walk through.
You had to, like, stop and wait.
Well, no, wait. That's okay that we have to stop and wait our turn. I don't think either of us have a problem with that, but it was just, like, twisty-turny, little claustrophobic. I'm like,
And then in the Great Hall, which is an impressive room, there was a dragon.
Yeah.
There was somebody in a dragon contraption that took up, like, half the room.
That was cool. So
and the kids were waiting in line to get their pictures taken with the dragon. She wouldn't let me get my picture taken with the dragon.
Nice.
I didn't really want to get my picture taken with the dragon. Yes, we did.
Jeez.
And so we made a quick exit from the castle, looked at the
we still enjoyed it.
We enjoyed it. It was worth seeing. I mean, I got like 3 or 4 articles out of this castle already.
I would love to go back and do it again.
Yeah, when on a weekday off season when nobody's there, because we have experienced many stately homes and castles when there is nobody there, and it's great. Like, I'm not saying I hate people. It's just
nice.
It's nice to explore a place at your own pace when it's quiet and
you can take your time moving through.
And these places are special. They're hallowed halls. They have a vibe to them, and you can commune more when you're kind of there on your own. One thing I recommend, if you do want to explore a place more on your own, get there right when it opens.
Yep.
That, like, when we went to Chatsworth, we were the first in the door, and so we got the whole route of the tour through Chatsworth to ourselves because we were the first in line.
Yeah. Pro tip right there.
Yeah, so.
Or go in the middle of the week.
Yeah, go on a weekday if they're open, because, again, a lot of these places have weird opening times, depending on whether it's National Trust or English Heritage or it's privately owned. Like,
yep.
Yeah. And so, but that wasn't the only thing to see in the village of Berkeley. So if I pronounced it wrong, I'm sorry. We say Berkeley here in the U.S. We think of Berkeley University or Berkeley where Stanford is? I don't know. We say Berkeley, but they say Barkley in the UK. And so I'm probably going to say it wrong more than once. So next to the castle is the village church, and so you can walk to the village church from the castle.
I don't even know when that dated from, but it is exceptional.
Yeah, it was really beautiful, and a rare thing that we noticed is a lot of the faded pre-Reformation painting was still on the stonework, which is a treat. Normally it's been whitewashed over; you can't see it.
It's beautiful.
So that was a neat little church. I mean, we always, if there's a church somewhere, we always walk inside because they're usually beautiful. And so, but then the next thing we did was probably one of the favorite things we did the entire trip.
And we just kind of stumbled upon it. It wasn't really far.
Like, I knew it was there, but then we were like, well, it's still only 11 o'clock. Like, why don't we just do this? And we're like, okay. And so we went to Edward Jenner's house, which is next to the church. And for those who don't know who Edward Jenner is,
father of modern vaccines.
Yeah, he invented the smallpox vaccine, or like developed it, and it was literally the first vaccine, and it was a revolution in science and medicine that this vaccine had been developed. I mean, we've literally eradicated smallpox since because of the work he did, and this was in the late 1700s, early 1800s. This is a long time ago. And so his house is preserved as a museum. It was not decorated for Halloween, unless you find pictures of pustules and smallpox.
I mean, it was terrifying, don't get me wrong, but it was really cool.
Yeah, it's a big, grand, old Georgian house.
townhouse
that a country squire would have, and he was the village doctor, so he was an educated man, and he was a pillar of the community, and he did scientific experiments in his spare time on smallpox. And when he noticed that the local villagers who had been exposed to cowpox, which is a similar disease, that they did not catch smallpox. And so he did experiments inoculating willing participants with the cowpox. And sure enough, it proved that the weaker form of smallpox prevented you from getting smallpox.
Well, he used his own children.
Yeah.
I mean, that is... I can only imagine over the dinner table, hey, honey, I have this idea. I'd like to test it on our kids. Like, can you... But it's really cool. All joking aside, unbelievable stories. And then the garden in the back.
Yeah, it's a medicinal garden.
It's his original medicinal garden. And they've got a poison garden back there and all kinds of stuff. It was really, really cool.
And it's a self-guided tour, but when you go in, somebody will kind of give you the background and the introduction. You pay your admission, and you walk around the house at your own pace. And his actual room where they did the smallpox inoculations is like glassed off, so you can't, like, it's preserved. And the house, it was cool to walk around an old Georgian house too. I mean, it was a beautiful, beautiful home, and yeah, it was quite something to be in this house in a village in the middle of the British countryside where one of the biggest revolutions in science took place, and you're just like, this is really cool. It was very moving.
And can I just say, and not to be controversial in any way, but, I hadn't been back since the pandemic, and in a lot of ways felt that we were only really able to travel for us because we had been vaccinated, and, I'm immunocompromised, but I can still receive the vaccine, and just knowing that really it kind of all started from there. I don't know. It was just, I think it was really something to for me at least, to kind of come full circle that, full circle.
So it was really cool. I have a long article about his house and all that, on all the history and the science, and it's in the Friends of Anglotopia Club. I'll put a link in the show notes. So then after that, we were hungry, but we also really wanted to visit another National Trust property.
Racing Daylight again.
Racing Daylight. So we drove along narrow country lanes to Newark Park, and I knew nothing about Newark Park before I arrived there. That's my favorite way to arrive at these places, is to know almost nothing about it, because then you learn so much.
Well, and the foliage down these windy, beautiful little country lanes.
In Newark Park, it sits on a ridge above the rest of the Cotswolds. So you climb and climb and climb, and then when you get there, the house is sitting on this ridge, and all around
on the edge of the ridge.
Yeah, on the edge of the ridge, literally like the feet from the house. And you see the beautiful valley that goes all the way to Wales and the Cotswolds, and it's gorgeous. And the house, it's not a particularly grand country house, but it ended up being one of the most interesting places we'd ever visited for Americans, because of the American connection here, and I had no idea about any of this. Thankfully, the National Trust staff there and all the displays kind of educate you on it. So Newark Park was a house that was in ruins in the 1970s, and an American named Bob Parsons, who had served in Britain during World War II, he fell in love with the place, and he was an antiquarian. He always wanted to restore a British house. And so the National Trust had put a call out that Newark Park needed to be renovated, and that if you if you agree to take on a renovation lease, which I don't think they do these anymore, because if they did, we'd be doing this interview in a National Trust property we're renovating. Essentially, you agree to renovate and restore the house along conservation principles and what the National Trust says, and you get to live in it while you do it and afterwards. And so this American moved to this middle of the nowhere
It really
house,
is remote.
and
Very remote.
and he spent the last 20 years of his life painstakingly restoring this house to its current state, and it is beautiful.
Yes.
I mean, you can see all the love this man put into this house, and I'm like, I identify with this man. He's now a new personal hero for me, that he saw this place and saw that it was a diamond in the rough and restored it to its former glory.
Well, and what's lovely, what I liked about it is a lot of his belongings are still in the house, so there are family pictures and there are...
And he was an interior designer, so it has his own stamp.
It's beautiful.
It's incredible. I haven't written about this yet, but I'm going to, because I really want to write a long article about him and his relationship with the house and all that, because there's a lot to research. So it's coming down the line in the next few months. If you're a Friends of the Anglotopia Club member, keep a lookout for that. So we had lunch there. Tea there
out in the garden.
Out in the garden, there was a little like tea stand, and we had sandwiches and dessert, and coffee and tea. And toward the house is a
little drizzly, like it's perfect.
And because of its remoteness and the fact that it's not really that well known, it wasn't that crowded. It was great.
No, it was.
There were families there enjoying the day out, but it was nice and quiet and sedate. And again, I'll put a link in the show notes to all the pictures I took at the house. An incredible place. I'm going to be writing more about it in the future, so that's a promise. So then after that, where it was only like 2 or 3 o'clock, so we were like, well, we can kind of fit one more thing in.
If we're fast.
And so I really wanted to visit a special village so when we did our drive from Land's End to John O'Groats, we went to Barter Books in Northumbria, in Annick, and I bought a copy of Cider with Rosie, which is upstairs. And I read it for the first time and just like fell in love with the book. Like, what an incredible book. Now, this book, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, Cider with Rosie is set in the early 20th century, and it's a sort of fictionalized memoir of Laurie Lee growing up in a village right before or after World War One, and it paints the most beautiful picture of rural English life before it kind of like disappeared forever. And it's such a beautiful book. I've read you selections of it. Mm-hmm. So since then, that was in 2018, I've been dying to go to Slad, the village where it's actually set and where he lived out the last of his days, because he loved it. And so we drove to the Strood Valley and to the village of Slad. And we went to the Woolpack Inn, parked our car, and you could see the village. It's a very, very tiny village. The valley is beautiful, and it's autumnal glory.
Smell all the fireplaces.
We walked around the village. We saw the famous cottages from the story. And then we went to the pub and just kind of had a drink. And the pub is basically a shrine to Laurie Lee now. They are definitely trying to capitalize on their local hero. We sat in the room where you could see they had different covers of the book. They had pictures of Laurie Lee, and it was, and we had a drink. We toasted to Laurie Lee, and then we went on.
We checked in on our flight.
Checked into our flight. That's the most romantic thing, right?
Right.
In Laurie Lee's pub, we checked into our flights, and it was a big pain in the butt because do not get me started on the British Airways mobile website experience. Do not get me started.
No, I won't. Nobody wants to see that.
Yeah, they need to fix their apps. That's all I'm going to say. And so, yeah, then that was the last thing we did, and we're like, well, we're losing the last of the daylight. Mm-hmm. So we headed back to our hotel, and that's when we had our proper dinner.
Yeah, our gourmet dinner.
Our gourmet dinner in the octagonal breakfast room where we've been eating breakfast the last 2 days.
So fine dining.
Very the maitre d' that was running it ran it like a tight ship. Everything was
phenomenal service.
Everything was timed perfectly. Service was great. Food was great. I have nothing bad to say about the meal.
No. It was lovely.
I mean, what better way to end our wonderful trip than to have a nice, wonderful gourmet meal in a great hall in a castle? It's just
twist our arms.
Yeah, as you do, right? And so after dinner, we went to bed, and we woke up in the morning and had breakfast, and then we had to drive to Heathrow and come home.
Do you want to talk about dropping me at the curb at Heathrow and the little tax on that?
Yeah, and I don't want this to turn into complaining. I don't like to complain about Britain because I love Britain.
But this is a travel tip.
This is a travel tip, and so we had a hire car or a rental car, as we say, and I needed to return a rental car. But to make things easier, I was like, Jackie, I'll just drop you at the terminal
with the bag,
with our bags, so we don't have to schlep everything on that little bus that they give you to drive you to the airport. And so I dropped her at the airport.
There's Terminal.
Terminal 5 departures, and
just curbside.
They had a new innovation that had happened since the last time we did this. They now charge you £5 to
do this,
to drop off somebody at the terminal.
Literally, if you drive up to the terminal, you got to charge.
They charge you £5, and how do they do this? They take a picture of your license plate. And so I saw the signs, and I was like, okay, all right. Go to this website when you return, and pay the fee. I'm like, okay, I'll remember to do that. Yeah. Well, wait, I didn't remember to do it, but so I dropped the rental car off. I drop her off, then go drop the rental car off, ride the free bus back to the airport. And I should say, if you don't want to pay the £5 to be dropped off at the terminal, there's a park and ride and a kiss and fly that you can drop.
But you still have to schlep all your bags.
And then there's a free shuttle, yeah. But anyway, so I dropped the car off, took the bus back to the airport, and the next day I'm like, oh, I gotta pay that £5. Well, I go on the website, I put in because I had the rental car documents still, so I put in the registration of the car. But for some reason, their system didn't work. Like, the thing didn't work. And I'm like, I can't pay the fee. Like, it's not working. And who am I gonna call? Yeah, what am I going to do? I'm like, it's £5. Well, they can send me the bill. Okay. Well, they did send me the bill. So when this happens, because, the car rental company owns the car and the registration, so the car rental company is going to send you the bill. And sure enough, a few weeks later, they're like, you didn't pay this fee. We paid it on your behalf. Now you owe us £40.
Yeah.
For doing this for you. You owe us the fee and the admin costs. And I'm like, okay.
To have been a fly on the wall when you told me that.
I was like, really?
$40, essentially. I mean,
no, £40, it's like 40, that's like $55.
I mean, at what point could I have taken a car?
Yeah.
To the, like a hired... So,
note to self, it's £5 to drop somebody off at Heathrow, and if you do that, and you have a glitch of any kind.
Yeah, because it's not stressful like you're going anywhere. So if it doesn't work,
so we went on our merry way and flew home to Chicago, and that was that.
But last really cool pro tip for traveling home, something new that I found. So it's just my opinion, but I feel like in all the years that we've been traveling, not naming names of any specific carriers or anything like that, in general, I feel like airplane food has just gotten worse and worse and worse, to the point where I really just don't even eat it on the plane. I'll pick something up in the terminal. And so every time I fly out, I do my Fortnum & Mason shopping at the airport, so it's duty free. And they now make hampers to go, so like little picnics to go. So I got a cream tea because we were on an evening flight. Or a daytime flight. And I knew that by the time we'd be in Chicago, it'd be time for dinner. So, and we had lunch. So I bought a little cream tea hamper, and it came with a couple of tea sandwiches, scone, potted cream and jam, sugar, a tea bag. It was phenomenal. So, everybody got served their meal on the plane, and I was so grateful that I thought ahead and I wasn't eating what everybody else was eating. It was gross. It was, I couldn't even tell you what it was. And so he pulled out his meal, and they give it to you in the cutest little, insulated cooler, so it all stays cool. And here I pull out it was like, if you've ever seen the movie Dutch.
That is a Midwestern deep cut deer.
Yes, it is. The movie Dutch with Ed O'Neill, and they're traveling across the country, and there's this scene where with the boy he's traveling with, they're staying in an overnight shelter, and the boy comes from a very upper class background and sets the table at the shelter to a formal dining. I mean, it's really actually very funny, but it was like a Dutch moment. Here I set out my high tea with my napkin on my lap, and you're eating God knows, I don't even know what that is.
You shared it with me.
I did, because I was like,
that looks really good.
So, but no, they do sandwiches, and they do these they're a little pricey. I mean, let's be honest, it's Fortnum & Mason. It was not cheap. But you know what? I was so happy to have had that. It was the best. So pro tip, again, travel pro tip. I will probably do that every time I fly out of Heathrow now. And it was wonderful.
Yeah, and so that was it for the trip, and we arrived home, and It's been a whirlwind since of
Yeah.
work and responsibility and Christmas and New Year's and birthdays, and now it's almost spring again, and I'm wondering, when can we go again, Pookie? Putting her on the spot here.
Yeah, okay.
But I feel like we should introduce the cat who has been in frame this whole time.
She is not so pleased that you're introducing her, apparently.
This is McGonagall, one of our adopted kitties.
She's a rescue.
Yeah, we've had her for about 10 years now. She's named after Professor McGonagall from Harry Potter. I named my cats after Harry Potter characters. Somewhere in the house is Ginny, named after Ginny Weasley. And then do we want to introduce the doggies?
Do people want to see the doggies?
Yeah, everyone wants to see doggies. Cooper, come here. Come here.
Where's Lady?
She's right there. Come here, Cooper. Come on. Come on.
They've been so good.
I know.
Normally good. Come on.
This is Cooper. We adopted him
Cooper.
last year?
Year before.
Year before, yeah. He's a very good boy.
No, he's not. But we love him anyway.
Lady, come here, lady. Come here. Come on. Come on. Come on. Now, this is Lady. We've had her for, 5 years now?
No, she was a pandemic doggy.
So, as you can see, we like King Charles Cavalier Spaniels.
And we sell them everywhere around England.
Yeah, we did. They're very British doggies, aren't they?
And we missed so
they had fun at the
doggy park.
They stayed. Well, with that, we are finally done talking about our trip, and I can stop hassling you to record this podcast. So, if you enjoy listening to the Anglotopia podcast, please subscribe. Please like or comment on YouTube. We appreciate all the comments. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Yes, please.
Please join the Friends of Anglotopia Club, where you can read the long researched articles about our adventures. And also, please check out our brand new book about the history of the British royal family from 1066 to now. So with that, we'll leave you with it. Bye-bye.